It was just another Tuesday night, or so I thought. I was curled up on my couch, binge-watching some old sitcom, trying to forget about the long day I'd had. The city sounds outside my apartment were the usual symphony of sirens, distant chatter, and the hum of traffic. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then it started. A faint thud. I paused the show, listening. Was it just the building settling? Maybe the neighbors upstairs were moving furniture again. I pressed play, but my ears were on high alert. A few minutes later, another thud, louder this time. Definitely coming from my front door. I muted the TV. The silence in my apartment felt heavy. Who could be knocking at this hour? I wasn't expecting anyone. My heart started to beat a little faster. Another knock, this time more frantic. Not a polite rap, but a desperate, palm-slapping bang. It echoed through my small living room. "Hello." A voice called out, muffled by the thick wood of the door. "Is anyone in there? Please, help me." My blood ran cold. The voice was strained, filled with a panic that was contagious. I crept towards the door, my socked feet silent on the hardwood floor. I peered through the peephole. A woman was there, her back to my door. She was looking down the hallway, her body tense. She looked scared. I didn't recognize her. She wasn't one of my neighbors. My mind raced through 1,000 worst-case scenarios. Was this a trap? A home invasion? I'd seen the news stories. You open the door for a damsel in distress, and suddenly you're the one in distress. "Please." She cried out again, her voice cracking. She banged on the door one more time, a loud, desperate slam that made me jump back. "He's coming. Please, just let me in." I stood there, frozen, my hand hovering over the deadbolt. My own fear was a physical thing, a cold knot in my stomach. Every instinct screamed at me to stay quiet, to pretend I wasn't home. The city had taught me to be cautious, to mind my own business, to lock my doors, and not open them for strangers. It was a survival mechanism. I held my breath, listening. I could hear heavy footsteps pounding down the hallway, getting closer. The woman let out a small, terrified whimper. Then, a man's voice, deep and angry, yelled her name. It was a name I didn't know, but the rage in his voice was universal. I heard a scuffle, a short, sharp scream from the woman, and then, silence. A chilling, absolute silence that was 1,000 times more terrifying than the noise before. I stayed glued to my spot, my ear pressed against the door, straining to hear anything, nothing. Just the faint sound of my own ragged breathing. Did they leave? Was she okay? My hand was shaking so badly I could barely keep it steady. The peephole was a tiny window into a world I desperately wanted no part of. I waited. 5 minutes passed, 10. It felt like an eternity. The silence from the hallway was unbroken. The fear that had kept me locked inside my apartment now morphed into a different kind of dread. Sickening, gut-wrenching feeling of what if she really needed help? What if I was her only chance? Slowly, cautiously, I turned the deadbolt. The click sounded deafening in the quiet. I opened the door a crack. The hallway was empty. The dim, fluorescent lights flickered, casting long, eerie shadows. There was no sign of the woman, no sign of the man. It was as if they had vanished. For a second, a wave of relief washed over me. Maybe it was just a domestic dispute. Maybe they went back to their own apartment. Maybe I'd done the right thing by not getting involved. I started to close the door, ready to retreat back into the safety of my own four walls, when my eyes caught something on the floor. A single, small, sparkly earring, lying near my doormat. It must have fallen off during the scuffle. I stared at it, the small piece of metal a tangible piece of evidence that the terror I had heard was real. It wasn't my imagination. It wasn't a movie. It happened right outside my door. The next morning, the building was buzzing. Red and blue lights flashed against my window. I saw the police tape stretched across the end of the hall, near the stairwell. My neighbors were huddled together, speaking in hushed, worried tones. I didn't need to ask what happened, I knew. I overheard snippets of their conversation. A young woman. Found in the stairwell. It didn't look good. My stomach lurched. The earring. The desperate banging. The scream. I went back inside my apartment and shut the door. The lock clicked into place, but this time, it didn't feel safe. It felt like a cage. The silence in my apartment was no longer comforting, it was accusing. Every quiet moment was filled with the echo of her voice. Please, help me. I replayed the scene over and over in my head. The fear in her eyes through the peephole. The sound of his angry voice. The final, sharp scream. Days turned into weeks. The police tape came down. The neighbors stopped talking about it. Life, for everyone else, seemed to move on. But for me, nothing was the same. My apartment, once my sanctuary, now felt haunted. I couldn't watch TV without thinking about that night. I jumped at every little noise. Every knock on the door sent a jolt of anxiety through me. The silence I had chosen that night, the silence I thought would protect me, had become my tormentor. I thought about the earring. I never told the police about it. I never told them I heard her. I was too ashamed. Too scared of what they would think, of the questions they would ask. Why didn't you open the door? Why didn't you call for help? I didn't have a good answer. All I had was my fear. Fear for my own safety. But now, a new fear had taken its place, the fear that my inaction, my silence, had cost someone their life. That night, fear had knocked on my door. It came in the form of a terrified woman, and it came in the form of an angry man. I had to choose a side. And in my silence, in my paralysis, I did. I chose my own side. I chose to protect myself. But in doing so, I had sided with the silence that followed her scream. I had sided with emptiness in the hallway. I learned a hard lesson that night. Fear doesn't just protect you, it makes choices for you. And sometimes, those choices leave you with a silence that you can never escape. Real stories like this force us to look at ourselves and the choices we make when we were afraid. What would you have done? It's a question that's easy to answer from the safety of your screen, but much harder when terror is banging on your door. Thanks for listening. If you appreciate stories that make you think, don't forget to follow Moral Compass 01 for more real stories and real lessons. Take care.